OG3 just fired back after people accused him of leaving Ben 10 to die. And what he said got the whole internet looking at him sideways. Not a denial, not even a real excuse. Just vibes that didn't sit right at all. This man really said, being a leader is not easy. That's it. Meanwhile, your guy is in the hospital fighting for his life, getting worked on by doctors, and you come through sounding like you're giving a corporate speech at a big company meeting. It felt off, no question. Nah, that didn't fly. NBA YoungBoy saw that response and shut it down immediately. No pause, no hesitation, he went straight at OG3 by name, called him out for leaving Ben 10 laid out and dipping fast when things got real. He made it clear he wasn't rocking with that kind of behavior at all. And the streets, they've been watching, waiting for something like this to pop off, because this situation goes way deeper than just one night. This isn't just about a single moment gone wrong. It's about loyalty, who's really solid, and who folds under pressure when it matters most. It's about Ben 10, someone who nearly lost everything, while the person who was supposed to stand next to him wasn't there when it counted. People want answers, and the usual headlines are not telling the full story. So here's what really needs to be understood. Before diving into the confrontation, before breaking down what OG3 said and why everyone reacted so strongly, you have to know who these people are and why their connection actually matters. Start with Ben 10. Ben 10 isn't just some random name tied to NBA YoungBoy. He's one of his closest day one affiliates. Not somebody who just showed up for the spotlight, but someone who's been there since the early grind in Baton Rouge. He's known as someone solid, the kind of person people point to when they talk about real loyalty in tough environments. He's been through the struggles, the legal issues, the pressure that comes with being close to a major figure in hip-hop. His loyalty to YoungBoy wasn't something he had to talk about. It showed through actions over time. And that matters, because when something happens to someone like Ben 10, someone who's proven himself again and again, the expectation is simple. The people around him are supposed to stand just as firm. That's the unwritten code. That's what separates the real ones from the people just tagging along for the ride, trying to look the part but not built for it when things get serious. Now let's talk about OG3. Yeah, NBA OG3. That title is supposed to carry weight. When someone puts OG in front of their name, it's not just for style, it's a statement. It's supposed to mean experience, respect, and someone others can actually rely on when pressure hits. When you claim that label, you're basically saying you're a leader without having to spell it out. You're saying you've seen enough, been through enough, and that younger people in the circle can look at you for guidance when things go left. OG3 has been moving like he holds that position, standing around YoungBoy's camp, showing up, being part of that inner environment tied to one of the most talked about artists in hip-hop. Then you've got NBA YoungBoy himself. No long intro needed, but context still matters. YoungBoy never broke again. Born Kentrell Deshaun Gaulden is more than just a rapper. He's a whole movement out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Everything about him is built on being real. The music is raw, the life story is raw, and it hasn't been smooth at all. Legal troubles, industry pressure, personal battles, he's been through it in the public eye, and people still lock in with him because he doesn't fake anything. He doesn't act loyal for show while moving different behind the scenes. What he says is what he stands on, period. So when YoungBoy steps out and calls someone out publicly, especially someone connected to his own circle, that's not random noise. That's not for attention. That's him reacting to something that crossed a line he doesn't play about, and he's not the type to stay quiet when that happens. Now this is where everything takes a serious turn. Pay close attention because the timeline matters more than anything here. Ben 10 ends up caught in a violent situation. This wasn't small, and it wasn't something blown out of proportion online. This was real life, high stakes, no room for exaggeration. We're talking about a situation where Ben 10 lands in the hospital in critical condition, not just hurt, fighting for his life, with medical staff working to bring him back from the edge. That's how intense it got, and that's why people are reacting the way they are right now. Now here's the question everybody in the street started asking right away, and this is the one that turned into the center of the whole situation. Where was OG3? What was happening in those critical moments when Ben 10 needed someone in his corner the most? What really went down between that incident and the hospital? The word started spreading fast, and not just random talk either. This was all over social media, hip-hop pages, and people connected to the scene. The story going around, that OG3 was there, or at least close enough to be there when everything unfolded. And instead of standing solid, instead of doing what people expect from someone with that OG title, he didn't hold it down. They said he ran, not stepping away to get help, not making a move with a plan, just gone when things got real. That's the narrative that took over, and it stuck because it was coming from voices people actually listened to in those circles. Meanwhile, Ben 10 was left in a life or death situation, fighting just to survive. Think about that for a second. Someone from your own circle, someone who's supposed to look at you as a leader, is laid out on a table with doctors trying to bring him back, and you're nowhere around. Not calling for backup, not staying close, just missing when it matters most. That hits deeper than any title or reputation can fix. That kind of situation doesn't just fade away either. You can't clean that up with a quick statement or a post online. You can't just say it's complicated and expect people to move on. When pressure hits, people show who they really are. And according to everything being said, that night revealed a side of OG3 that people can't ignore. And this is where everything takes a wild turn. Most people in YoungBoy's position, huge name, constant spotlight, dealing with their own serious situations, might have kept this quiet, handled it behind closed doors, kept it in the circle, avoided the public drama. But that's not what happened. YoungBoy stepped out and addressed OG3 directly. No sugarcoating, no vague hints. He called him out by name and repeated exactly what people were already saying about him leaving Ben 10 behind. Clear, direct, and impossible to misunderstand. He made sure everyone knew exactly who he was talking about and what the accusation was. This hit hard for a few big reasons. First, YoungBoy is not the type to jump out with public accusations unless he feels sure about what he's saying. This is somebody who's dealt with enough real-life pressure to understand exactly how serious public words can be. So when he steps up and says somebody did something, people assume he has a reason. Whether that came from what he was told, what he heard from people close to the situation, or conversations after everything went down, the point is simple. He's not known for throwing wild guesses around. Second, YoungBoy calling out OG3 was more than just anger. It was him drawing a line in public. In his world, in his circle, and in the culture around him, that kind of call out sends a loud message. It says this man is not who he claimed to be. That OG label is supposed to mean something, and once YoungBoy put that pressure on him, a lot of people started looking at that title different. The respect started slipping, and anybody still trying to give OG3 the benefit of the doubt had to look at the whole situation again. Third, and this is the part that really lands, YoungBoy seemed to be doing this for Ben 10. That's loyalty in motion, not just talk. Ben 10 almost lost his life, and while he's trying to recover from everything that came with that nightmare, YoungBoy is making sure the person accused of leaving him behind doesn't just keep walking around untouched, still wearing a good reputation like nothing happened. Ben 10 is the one left dealing with the physical pain, the emotional weight, and the scars from that night, and YoungBoy made it clear that part wasn't getting overlooked. That's what standing on business looks like to a lot of people watching this unfold. That's the standard YoungBoy was putting out there with this confrontation, and it changed the whole energy around the story. But then came OG3's response, and that's where this whole thing turned into a real culture moment. Because when somebody with YoungBoy's platform and street credibility calls you out in public, you really only have a few ways to move. And this is where OG3 messed up bad, because out of all the choices he had, people feel like he picked the weakest one. One option was to stay quiet, stay off social media, and deal with everything behind closed doors. That might not look strong, but at least it doesn't make the situation worse. The other option was to come with proof. Bring a clear explanation, real details, something solid from people who knew what happened. Lay out your version step by step and show why the story being spread was off. That would have been the move if there was truth on his side. But instead of shutting things down with something solid, his response left people even more confused, and that's exactly why the backlash got so loud. Option 3. And this one shouldn't even be an option at all. No real OG is supposed to move like this. This is where you dodge the situation with some deep-sounding line that actually says nothing. You don't address what people are accusing you of, you just float around it trying to make it sound philosophical instead of factual. And that's exactly what OG3 did. His response? Being a leader is not easy. That's it. After all those accusations, after everything being said, that's what he chose to put out there. That's supposed to be the explanation? That's supposed to clear things up after YoungBoy called him out directly? Now let's break down why that response hit people the wrong way so fast. Because some might think at least he said something. No, this made it worse. Way worse than just staying quiet. First off, saying being a leader is not easy means he's accepting that leader role. He's not denying responsibility, not saying he wasn't there, not even questioning the story. He's basically admitting he was in a position where he was supposed to act and things went bad. That doesn't help him, that hurts him. Second, and this is what really had the internet going crazy, that statement didn't answer anything. Not one detail got addressed. YoungBoy said you ran. He said you left Ben 10 behind. And OG3 didn't come back with "that's not true" or "here's what actually happened." Nothing like that. Just being a leader is not easy. Like that explains the situation or clears his name. People weren't buying that at all. And third, the streets took that response as straight up guilt. Not maybe, not possibly. Guilt, clear as day. Because when someone gets hit with a direct accusation and they respond with something vague and philosophical, people already know what that looks like. It's the oldest move in the book. Avoid the details, talk around it, and hope the focus shifts. But this time, it didn't work. It just made everything louder. The streets have seen this play out for years. People know how to read between the lines, catch the tone, and spot when someone's dodging the truth. That's survival instinct for a lot of folks, not just entertainment. So when that response dropped, the internet didn't react like, "wow, that's deep." It reacted like, "this man really just tried to get away with that." Comments flooded in from everywhere. Fans, critics, even people who barely knew the names involved, but they all saw the same thing. It looked like someone trying to slip out of accountability with a one-line quote that didn't answer anything. And when YoungBoy saw that response, it only made things worse. He wasn't about to let that slide, not after everything that had already been said. That moment right there pushed this situation to another level. But here's where it gets bigger than just OG3 versus Ben 10. If you step back and really look at what's been going on around YoungBoy's circle over time, a pattern starts to show itself. This doesn't feel random, it feels like something that was building up for a while. YoungBoy has been dominating the music space for years. Huge numbers, massive fan base, constant attention, his presence is everywhere. But with that kind of spotlight comes a different kind of pressure. People start showing up, and not all of them are there for the right reasons. Some are genuine, solid, and loyal, but others are drawn to what comes with being close to that level of success. And the hardest part? Telling the difference between the two. Because the ones who aren't real can play the role perfectly, right up until the moment where it actually costs them something. That's when everything changes. OG3 carried himself like he was one of the real ones. An OG, a leader, someone people could depend on. That image held weight for a while, and people gave him respect because of it. But the truth is simple, and the streets have always understood this better than anyone. Titles don't make you solid. Positions don't prove loyalty. What really defines someone is how they act when things get serious, when there's real pressure, real risk, and no easy way out. That's when everything gets exposed. And that moment, that test, that was Ben 10's situation. That was the time for OG3 to stand firm, and according to everything being said, he didn't. That's why this hit so hard, and that's why people aren't letting it go. Now think about what this really means for everything OG3 has ever stood on. If he could leave Ben 10 in a moment like that, what does that say about every other time he claimed he would hold it down? What does it say about the advice he gave to younger people around him, the ones who looked at him like a leader? What does it say about every situation where his OG status gave him influence and a voice? The damage doesn't stop at that one incident, it spreads backwards. His credibility doesn't just crack, it collapses across everything tied to his name. Because loyalty and authenticity don't come in pieces. You can't be mostly real or sometimes solid. The second that image breaks under real pressure, everything connected to it starts falling apart. YoungBoy clearly understands that. That's why he didn't just focus on what happened that night. He went straight at OG3's entire identity. The OG title, the leader role, the whole image he built. Because if someone keeps that label after a moment like this, it starts to affect everyone else around them who actually is solid. It blurs the line between who's real and who's just playing a part. Now look at what comes after something like this, because the call out wasn't the end. It was the start of a whole new chapter, especially for Ben 10. And this part gets overlooked way too often. This wasn't just some situation you walk away from like nothing happened. This was serious, life-threatening, the kind of moment that stays with you long after you leave the hospital. There's the physical recovery, sure, but the mental side hits different. Knowing what happened, knowing how close things got, and knowing that someone you trusted wasn't there when it counted, that's a whole other weight to carry. That doesn't just fade overnight. What YoungBoy did by speaking out goes beyond just exposing the situation. It sends a message directly to Ben 10. You're not being overlooked, and what happened to you matters. It's standing up for someone when they can't fully do it themselves, making sure the story doesn't get twisted while they're still dealing with the aftermath. That kind of support hits deeper than anything money or status can fix. And for OG3, that response, Being a leader is not easy might have done the most damage out of everything, because now the narrative feels locked in. It's not just what people are saying anymore, it's what he said himself. Trying to walk that back later gets a lot harder when your own words are what made people question you in the first place. Now, he can't turn around now and say the streets got it wrong, because when he was faced with a direct accusation, he answered with the deflection that everybody could see through. Even people who never heard his name before picked up on it instantly. That's how obvious it looked, and once that kind of impression sticks, it spreads fast. In hip-hop culture, moments like this usually go one of two ways. Either the person doubles down and things spiral into something bigger, louder, and harder to control, or they go quiet, let the moment pass, and accept that their reputation in that circle just took a permanent hit. There's really no middle ground once it reaches this level. And for OG3, that OG title, it's basically on pause now. People are not looking at him the same way after this. The respect that came with that label starts fading, and the people who used to listen to him, follow his lead, or treat his words like guidance from a senior figure, they're rethinking everything now. Because once you see how someone reacts under real pressure, you can't unsee it. For YoungBoy's circle as a whole, this becomes a wake-up moment. Situations like this force everybody to look around and ask real questions. Who's actually been tested? Who has proven themselves when it mattered most? And who has just been playing the role without ever facing that real moment of truth? YoungBoy has never backed away from those questions. His track record is out in the open. He's dealt with serious situations, public setbacks, and real-life pressure, and people have seen how he handles it. That's why the standard around him is set so high. And when someone in that space falls short in a major way, the reaction isn't silence or excuses. It's exactly what we saw: direct accountability in public. Now zoom out for a second, because this situation isn't just about these three names. It's part of a bigger conversation that's always existed in hip-hop: loyalty, authenticity, and what it really means to be solid. These aren't new topics, but moments like this bring them right back to the surface. The OG title especially carries serious weight. It's not just a nickname, it's a responsibility. When someone accepts that label, they're claiming experience, tested loyalty, and a level of dependability that others are supposed to be able to count on. Whether they say it out loud or not, that's what comes with it. And when actions don't match that image, the fallout speaks for itself. You basically become a pillar in the whole circle. An OG isn't just another person, they're someone people lean on when things get serious. So when an OG runs, when an OG leaves someone behind, it doesn't just hurt one relationship, it shakes everything they stood for. Because the trust placed in them wasn't just personal, it was deeper than that. It was tied to what that title is supposed to represent in the first place. And here's the reality about trust in high-pressure situations: it doesn't fully come back once it's broken. You might patch things up on the surface, have conversations, try to move forward, but that original belief, the kind where someone would stand next to you in danger because they truly trusted you wouldn't leave, that version is gone, no question. That's why YoungBoy's response hits beyond just this situation. He's not only reacting, he's setting a standard in front of everybody watching. He's making it clear that this kind of behavior gets called out, and that throwing out a line like being a leader is not easy doesn't replace actually being there when it matters. That message carries weight no matter where you're from. It goes way beyond Baton Rouge or just his fan base. Because at the core, this situation touches on something everybody understands: who's really there for you when things go left. The names might be specific to this story, but the lesson is universal. Real shows up when it counts, and anything fake gets exposed the moment pressure hits, every single time. And look at what YoungBoy focused on too. He didn't just call out the act, he went at the whole leader image. By doing that, he made it clear that you can't hide behind a title if your actions don't match it. That's a bigger statement about the difference between talking like a leader and actually living like one. Because in a lot of situations, the people who speak the loudest about being solid are the first ones to disappear when things get real. And that's exactly the point being made here. Titles don't mean anything if you don't stand on them when it matters most. The culture has seen this story too many times. Artists, street figures, people who built their whole image around codes and principles, then when the real moment hits, they don't stand on it. And every single time it happens, it proves the same point. You can't fake your way through pressure. When it's real, the mask drops. And once people see that, nothing goes back to how it was. So where does everything stand now? After YoungBoy called out OG3, after OG3 came back with what many people see as one of the weakest responses in recent hip-hop talk, And after the internet picked it apart from every angle, what's the outcome? First and most important, Ben 10 is recovering. That's the center of all this. The person who actually went through the situation, who faced that life-threatening moment, is still here and working his way back. That matters more than any argument online. And he's doing that knowing that his connection to YoungBoy showed public support instead of staying quiet when it counted. As for OG3, he's stuck with that response. That being a leader is not easy line isn't going anywhere. It's already turned into a talking point, something people repeat when they're calling out weak explanations. It's stuck to his name now, and that's not something you can easily shake off. Whether he speaks again, tries to explain himself, or just steps out of the spotlight for a while, the first response already shaped how people see this situation. In moments like this, first impressions hit the hardest, and for a lot of people watching, that was all they needed to hear. YoungBoy keeps it moving. That's just how he operates. He doesn't sit around dragging moments out or celebrating the call out. He puts everything out there clear and direct and then keeps pushing forward. The music doesn't stop, and the circle gets tighter around the people who've actually proven themselves when it mattered most. The ones who didn't, they get handled how they get handled. And the culture is always watching, always learning from moments like this. Because situations like this aren't just drama, they're lessons. They show everybody that loyalty and showing up aren't just things you say. They're things that get tested when life gets real. Those principles aren't for interviews or captions. They show up in the moments you didn't plan for. The moments that come with risk, pressure, and real consequences. When the easy move is to step away, that's when the difference shows. The real ones don't take the easy route in those situations, and that's what separates them from everybody else. YoungBoy has always stood on that, and Ben 10 showed it through years of loyalty. And now, people are looking at OG3 and drawing their own conclusions about where he stands after everything that happened. That line between real and not, it got real clear in this situation. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think OG3 can recover from this, or is the damage already done? Is there anything he could say now that would actually change how people see it? And was YoungBoy right for putting this all out in public, or should it have stayed behind closed doors? Make sure you like and share this so more people can tap in, because this conversation is only getting bigger from here.